There's a quiet revolution happening right under your feet, and honestly, most people never notice it. Every time you mow your lawn, you're producing what looks like waste. But in reality, you're holding one of the most powerful soil-building tools nature has ever designed. The problem is, most gardeners misunderstand what happens next. They assume grass clippings quickly turn into rich, finished humus, but they don't. What unfolds instead is a dynamic, living transformation, driven by heat, microbes, fungi, and time. And if you don't understand that timeline, you can actually harm your soil instead of improving it. Today, you're going to learn exactly how grass clippings become true humus, what really happens week by week, and how to use that knowledge to build healthier, richer soil faster than ever. Before we dig in, take a second to support Garden Smart. Like this video, share it with someone who loves gardening, drop a comment with your experience using grass clippings, and hit subscribe so you don't miss practical, real-world techniques that actually work. Now, let's get into the science and the strategy behind turning simple lawn waste into long-lasting soil fertility. Humus is often confused with compost, but they are not the same thing. Compost is an active stage of decomposition, full of life and still breaking down. Humus, on the other hand, is the final, stable form of organic matter. It no longer decomposes easily and acts as a long-term reservoir for nutrients, water, and microbial life. This distinction matters because adding unfinished material to your soil can temporarily rob plants of nitrogen. When microbes are still actively breaking things down, they pull nutrients from the surrounding soil. True humus avoids that problem because it has already completed that process. Fresh grass clippings are like extremely rich in nitrogen. The moment they're piled together with a bit of moisture, microbial activity just explodes. Within a day, temperatures can rise dramatically as thermophilic bacteria begin feeding on simple sugars and proteins. This is honestly the most intense phase of decomposition. The pile heats up, moisture builds, and oxygen is rapidly consumed. If left unmanaged, the clippings can compact into a dense, slimy mass. That's why, airflow is absolutely critical during this stage. Turning the pile or mixing in coarse material prevents it from collapsing into an oxygen-starved mess. By the end of this phase, the clippings are still green, but already beginning to soften and lose structure. As the initial burst of microbial activity continues, the pile begins to shrink noticeably. You'll see a clear reduction in volume as the material compresses and breaks down. The bright green fades into yellow and light brown tones, signaling that the easiest nutrients have been consumed. At this stage, the texture becomes softer, but it's still far from finished. What you have now is early-stage compost, not humus. The internal temperature remains high, and the microbial workforce is still focused on rapid consumption rather than stabilization. By the second week, the pile starts to cool slightly as the most aggressive bacteria run out of easy food sources. This is when fungi begin to take over. They break down tougher materials like cellulose, which bacteria alone cannot fully process. You'll notice a more earthy smell, replacing the sharp, grassy scent. The structure becomes denser, and individual grass blades are harder to distinguish, though still visible. Worms may begin appearing around the edges where temperatures are lower, signaling the transition into a more balanced ecosystem. This is a critical turning point, but it's still not humus. Now the pile approaches ambient temperature, and the microbial community changes again. Slower organisms such as actinomycetes and beneficial fungi dominate this phase. These are responsible for that rich, earthy aroma associated with healthy soil. The material becomes crumbly in places, and worm activity increases significantly. They pull partially decomposed matter deeper into the soil, enhancing the breakdown process through digestion. Many gardeners stop here, thinking the job is done. It's not. At this stage, you're looking at advanced compost, but not yet stable humus. By the 4th week, the transformation is honestly pretty dramatic. The pile is darker, softer, and far more uniform. Most of those recognizable grass fibers have disappeared, replaced by a rich, soil-like substance. Worm castings become more visible, and the smell is deep and earthy. Even now, this is technically proto-humus. It still needs some curing time in the soil to become chemically stable. Over the next several weeks, microbes and worms just keep refining the material, completing the final stages of humification. If you want faster results, balance is everything. Grass clippings alone are just too nitrogen-heavy. Mixing them with carbon-rich materials like dry leaves or straw creates a more stable environment for microbes. Turning the pile during the first 2 weeks introduces oxygen, which fuels microbial activity and prevents compaction. Moisture should be consistent but not excessive. A damp, sponge-like feel is ideal. Too dry, and decomposition slows. Too wet, and you risk anaerobic conditions. These small adjustments can really reduce the overall timeline while producing a more consistent, higher quality end product. Worms are not just helpers, they're finishers. As they consume partially decomposed material, they transform it into castings that are chemically stable and nutrient-rich. These castings bind with soil particles, improving structure and fertility in a way raw compost just can't. Encouraging worms by spreading semi-finished material as mulch or incorporating it into active soil zones can accelerate the transition to true humus directly in your garden beds. Humus is the foundation of long-term soil health. It improves water retention in sandy soils and drainage in clay soils. It stores nutrients and releases them slowly, creating a stable environment for plant growth. Most importantly, it supports a thriving underground ecosystem that sustains fertility year after year. Understanding the timeline of grass decomposition allows you to work with nature instead of against it. Instead of rushing the process, you can manage it, guide it, and really maximize its benefits. Grass clippings are not waste. They are one of the most powerful resources available to any gardener. When handled correctly, they become the backbone of living soil. If you found this guide useful, make sure to subscribe to Garden Smart, share this with a fellow gardener, and leave a comment with your own experience. There's always more to learn when it comes to building better soil, and this is just the beginning.